This morning I'm going to talk about nutrition for positive aging. And I asked you last time if anybody was getting older in the room, and everybody said no. But I'm definitely, every day I'm getting a bit older. So I'm going to delve into this subject of positive aging, and I hope that will be interesting for you. Just for anybody who wasn't at my last lecture, I work as a dietitian back in the UK, and research and teaching at Bristol University, but I just left both those jobs and started doing other things, including working on these lovely ships, which I really enjoy. So, positive aging. I'm just going to tell you quickly to get you sort of thinking about why we would even look at this subject of diet and positive aging, and then I'll get much more into the practicalities of it. But what the research is actually showing is that our genes only account for about 25% of our aging. So we all know that we say, oh, my parents lived to their 80s and 90s. That's a good likelihood that you're going to do it. But it's actually only about 25% of our aging is down to genetics. But still a reasonable amount, isn't it? The rest is down to lifestyle, so what happens to us in the course of our life. And diet is one of those things that's really, really important. So there's other things like exercise and smoking and alcohol and things like that. But diet is one of those key factors that influences aging, health, and quality of life as we get older. Because that's what's important, really, isn't it? I don't know about you, but I want my later years to be in good quality. So diet can have a good impact on that. And the other thing that the research shows is it's never too late to make a difference, which I think is really interesting. So you don't have to start when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. It's never too late to make a difference. And quite a lot of the research I've picked to show you today is done on people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, showing whether it can make a difference. So that's sort of background to the positive aging. But what I would say is it's really confusing. I don't know if this applies to you, but I've just picked out some headlines here from the papers. So these are real pictures from the newspaper. So, lifestyle is the key to beating dementia. That's fair enough, but what part of lifestyle? Lose weight to beat dementia. Is that true? Coffee fights Alzheimer's. Oh, that's interesting. Eat salad to beat dementia? There's so many different things, aren't there? Oily fish can beat dementia. Well, can it? How much do you need to eat? What type? Chocolate can halt dementia. That's good for that row up the back. They're waving at me, the chocolate row. Is that true? Sugar speeds up dementia. Well, how does that correlate with the chocolate halts dementia? And then spicy diet can beat dementia. So these are just some of the confusing headlines that I've seen in the paper. So my mission today is to try and sort through what actually works, not just in terms of dementia, but in terms of our whole body as we age. What does the research really show that works? And how the researchers have done this is two ways. One is observational studies, so really close studies of aging and quality of life in populations around the world. And you may be aware, but there are certain places in the world where people live to, they have loads of people over 100 and living in really good quality of life. So what we want to do is, what are these people doing? So these are called the blue zones. And I expect you've been to some of these. Who's been to Sardinia? Yeah, I was just there last month. Fantastic. So there's certain places of Sardinia where people live really long, healthy lives. It's the same in Greece, and in particular, there's one area called Icaria where they've got lots of centenarians. But also Okinawa. Anybody been to Okinawa? Yes, I thought we might get a few. That's a place in Japan, and again, there's lots of really healthy older people there. And then California, place on the coast there, and Costa Rica. Anybody been to Costa Rica? Oh, a lot of small people. Excellent. So some of the things the scientists do is they look at what is the difference in the lifestyle with these particular areas of the world. What are they doing? What are they eating? And the other thing, which complements this, is we can now measure human chromosomes and we can look at how well people are aging. Now, we don't do this on thousands of people. We just do it in small studies. But what we can measure is the chromosome telomere length, and that's that little cap on the end of the chromosome. It's a bit like the cap on the end of a shoelace. And what we want them is to be long for longevity. So actually measuring somebody's chromosomes now and having a look at those telomeres can give us a measure of the quality of life as people age. So it's quite scientific now. And dietary factors can help maintain that length. There's good evidence around that now. So positive aging is a thing, and diet and positive aging is a field, quite a big field of research now. And I quite like this quote by C.S. Lewis. I don't know if anybody's a fan of C.S. Lewis. He wrote all the Narnia stories and lots of other good things as well. But I like this quote. It's not meant about positive aging, particularly in diet, but it's, you cannot go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. And I quite liked that quote because I think that is really true. Research is showing that diet makes a difference and it's never too late. But what we want to know is where in the body can it make a difference and what makes a difference. So this is my job now, is a whistle-stop tour around the human body. So one area I'm going to look at is the brain. And we talked about that a lot back on that last C Day, which seems ages ago now. We talked a lot about how diet can affect mood. This time, I'm looking at how diet can affect the brain via our cognitive function. So that's things like learning and memory that get a little bit worse as we get older, and dementia, which obviously doesn't affect everybody, but it's one of those things that I'm sure everybody in the room knows somebody who's had dementia as they've got older. So what we want to know is there anything diet-wise that can affect just the learning and memory changes as we get older, but also the dementia. And cognitive decline through our life changes, and of course it goes rapidly up. Our learning and memory goes rapidly up, right up until adulthood. But the unfortunate thing is it can decline quite steeply in older age. What we want to do is try and make that decline as gentle as possible. So we are probably going to lose some of our learning and memory, but what we want to do is make that as gentle as possible so it doesn't impair quality of life. So that's what we're going to look at. We're also going to look at briefly at heart disease and stroke. Again, probably everybody in this room knows somebody who's had that. Age-related changes in vision. Now, I don't know if people have heard of age-related macular degeneration. That's where there's some damage at the retina at the back of the eye, which again seems to be one of those things that happens as we get older. So I'm going to have a look and see if there's any dietary links with that. And then type 2 diabetes. I know lots of people in the audience have mentioned to me already, but that's one of those things that happens as we get older sometimes. So we've got the brain, the heart, the eyes, diabetes. The other area that's key is our muscles, bones and joints. Now, just walking around the ship, so many people have mentioned to me about arthritis or osteoporosis. So it's a key one, our muscles, bones and joints as we get older. So osteoporosis is that one at the top, where the bones get a bit more brittle. Osteoarthritis is the inflammation of the joint. Now, I've had that in my knee, so I've got a new knee from arthritis. But it's 50% of adults over 50 have got arthritis somewhere. Now, I find that statistic absolutely amazing. So it's a really common one. So again, we're going to look and see what what diet plays in that. And then the other one, you may or you may not have heard of this, which is sarcopenia. And this is muscle loss as we age. And we lose around 10% of our muscle strength every decade after the age of 40. So that's a bit depressing, isn't it? But there are things that we can do that will help slow that down and prevent that. And the problem with all of these things, osteoporosis, arthritis and sarcopenia, is they make our mobility and our independence more difficult. And I'm guessing one of the key things of quality of life as we get older is we want to be mobile, don't we? We want to be able to stay in our own homes. We want to be independent. So that's why looking at muscle, bone and joint health is a good one. So those are the areas I'm going to cover. And the good news is the diet is pretty similar for all aspects of aging. So let's have a quick whistle-stop tour. The overall thing is making sure we eat a good variety and balance of nutrients. Now, I don't know if this surprises you, but our energy requirements and our food intakes go down as we get older. So I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but I've noticed that I can eat less as I get older. I tend to, when I was in my 20s, I used to be able to eat loads, but our energy requirements and our food intake goes down as we get older. But the need for other nutrients, for all the vitamins, minerals, protein, stays high. So what that means is that the quality of our diet becomes even more important as we get older. So you may well have, a good example is grandchildren, teenage boys particularly. They eat so much, don't they, that because they're eating so much, the chances are they're getting most of their nutrients from the food. When we're older, when we're eating slightly smaller portions, what that means is the quality of those portions that we are eating needs to be better because we're eating less food. So a key is variety and balance. So something a bit like that mix of foods there. So let's delve into these foods a little bit more. Oh, sorry, I forgot I had put a cartoon in. The alternative food groups as we age. This is my favourite cartoonist, and I just found this cartoon by him. So it's a gentleman talking to his friend. He's saying, my food groups are the things my wife lets me eat, things my doctor lets me eat, things my heartburn lets me eat, and things my teeth let me eat. I thought that was a bit sad. So obviously those aren't the real food groups. Yeah, some of the things that can happen. Okay. So which foods are important for positive aging? Because that's what we really want to know, isn't it? The nitty-gritty. What is a good thing to eat? So a bit like we looked at with mood and food. So the first one is very similar to the mood food. It's fish. And we know, those of you who came to the last lecture or saw it on the TV, we've got omega-3 fats, we've got protein, we've got vitamins, minerals. They're a really, really healthy food. And the role in terms of aging, heart health and stroke, brain function, eye health, joint health, and muscle health. So there's studies now linking fish consumption with benefits in all of those. So if any of those are your issue or your concern, fish is good. And do you remember last time I was saying that the omega-3 fats are probably the key? Well, they increase telomere length. So that cap at the end of the chromosome, they help keep that long. So there's good studies now that fish consumption helps in terms of that aspect of positive aging. But also, the brain is very high in omega-3. And in particular, the frontal cortex of the brain, which is around about here, is the area that's involved in memory, learning, and mental agility. So for those of you who are doing the crossword or the Sudoku, you're using your frontal cortex there. And omega-3 is particularly high in that part of the brain, which I think is really interesting. And I've just picked one photo here from a study. This is looking at new brain cells in a test tube and looking at the connections they make, which is what's involved in learning and memory. And I don't know how well this shows it on a big screen, but this is the brain cells without any omega-3. This is the brain cells when you give them the omega-3. So they actually use that to make new connections. So it looks as if there's a good physiological reason why we need that particular fat in our diet. And